Good afternoon on a Tuesday afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Your Brain on Air. This is Ollie Vogt Larson. I am so pleased and overjoyed to be with you today. It's been a busy start to the week. I'm going to be honest with you. I took Monday off because I was I was tired as heck. The weekend was tiresome. Had a wonderful celebration. It involved soup at my family's. It was great. I don't know what you did to fill your weekend. I hope it was, half as fun as what it was for me. I think it's been exactly a week since we released our first episode, so that's something to celebrate. So let's celebrate it with a bing bong hit. Expert. And finally, well, not finally, what am I saying? We just got started. And now we can get into the news of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, this one just broke yesterday, and I'm so excited to fill you in on it. New York financier has been accused of torturing women for at least a decade with an assistant. Now, I know you're all hearing me talk about this and you're going, wait a minute. Are you sure you're not reading a headline that is like 6 years old? That sounds really familiar. Well, this does not involve our best friend and our pal, Jeffrey Epstein. This involves an individual by the name of Howard Rubin, and his assistant is Jennifer Powers. So, what is this? What's going on? Who is Howard Rubin, and what's the case about? Let's get into it. Howard Rubin is a retired financier, age 70, who worked in New York firms, including Merrill Lynch, Bear Stearns, and Soros Fund Management. So he worked under Bear Stearns, the same management fund that Mr. Epstein comes from. That's an interesting little link. And also the Soros Fund, George Soros. That's just an interesting character to link to this person. And also, on September 26, 2025, a 10-count federal indictment was unsealed in Brooklyn, charging Rubin and his former personal assistant, Jennifer Powers, with sex trafficking, transporting women for prostitution, in parentheses, interstate, and bank fraud, in parentheses, in relation to financing Powers' mortgage. Rubin was arrested in Fairfield, Connecticut. Powers was arrested in Texas. Rubin has pleaded not guilty and is being held without bail. The judge has cited a flight risk, which makes a lot of sense. This is very interesting. So this person is described as having dungeons. That is a very, very, very curious word to use. Most people that you know that are like finance types are like, you go back in your mind and think, okay, yeah, that person that I knew in high school, they said they wanted to get into finance. They like numbers and stuff like that. That you probably think of that person and you're like, oh, maybe they watched Wolf of Wall Street when they were super young and it made an impression. Maybe their dad was involved in finance and they just like, or maybe they just loved mathematics and they love the way that the magic of numbers works. The real thing that draws people to the world of finance is dungeons and terrible things that they're doing in the shadows. That is just oddly the world of finance. So if you know anybody who works at a bank, if you know anybody who works in the world of finance in any way whatsoever, I'm telling you, this person that you're really comfy around, they're meeting in the woods to determine things about your life. That's pretty fascinating. So what is this guy's dungeon and how is it described? Much of the public narrative centers on the room in Rubin's Manhattan penthouse that prosecutors refer to as the dungeon. Key features alleged, quote, the penthouse was a 2-bedroom apartment near Central Park. One bedroom was converted into a so-called dungeon. That room was soundproofed and painted red with a lock on the door. It was outfitted with BDSM equipment and devices, including one alleged device to shock or electrocute the women. Whew. That is commitment. There's an allegation that during the encounters, he ignored safe words that the women used or continued beyond the scope of consent. Whew. Some women were said to have lost consciousness during the encounters. Quote, one of the women's breast implants had flipped upside down during one of the encounters and had needed surgery to correct. Jesus Christ. So the dungeon is not a metaphorical term here. It is alleged to be a physically modified, soundproofed room designed for violent, controlled sexual acts. Jesus. All right, that's intense. Wowie wow. This is real. This is news. This is serious stuff. This is actually happening. This is not like YouTube. Do not, whatever. Don't shadow whatever this. This is some serious news that people need to know about. What role did the assistant Jennifer Powers allegedly play? Jennifer Powers was not merely a peripheral figure in the charges, according to prosecutors. Quote, Powers is alleged to have managed the logistics of the operation, recruiting women, arranging their flights and travel, transporting them from airports to the penthouse, and dealing with the, quote, fallout when the women complained. She is alleged to have maintained the dungeon itself, cleaning it between uses, restocking equipment, and converting the bedroom, etc. Wow. Powers, this woman was, by the way, loyal. This woman is Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, Ghislaine sounded like a diehard. She sounded like a woman who was like ready to go for your cause. But this lady, she's cleaning the room herself. Ghislaine, she would have paid somebody off to do that. Her father was Robert Maxwell. She was not about to do that. Her father was like a Mossad agent who ended up getting, killed off in the middle of the ocean. She was a woman of class and wealth. This woman, Jennifer Powers, she's married to some loser who also works in New York. This woman is not of class. She's not of anything. She's not a Ghislaine Maxwell, but she is willing to get down and dirtier than Ghislaine ever was. So that's just fascinating to me. Powers was also accused of handling the financial payments and structuring payments, deliberating to avoid banking thresholds, for example, avoiding transactions of $10,000 or more to evade reporting. Wow, so she was crunching numbers in order to avoid the banks going, hey, these are massive payments to so-and-so. She also allegedly used non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, to threaten them or intimidate the women or discourage legal recourse or maintain secrecy. This is wild. The indictment also includes a bank fraud count tied to misrepresentations to a bank related to Powers' mortgage. Rubin is accused of lying about being a party to litigation so as to secure the mortgage. Wow. Thus, Powers is painted in these charges as a full partner in the scheme, not as a passive aid, not just kind of like a woman hanging off to the side in these sorts of things. What are especially disturbing about these allegations? I would love to get into the details for you. The use of physical violence, as in prosecutors describe Rubin brutalizing the women's bodies, causing, quote, significant pain and injuries, and making the women fear for their safety. In some cases, women complained of bruises, injuries, or needing medical treatment. Some women were made unconscious during these acts. The ignoring safe words, the electrocution, bull honky, that is ridiculous. Recruiting vulnerable women under false pretenses. From what we're seeing, these women were brought under they were women who were in financially precarious situations. So very similar to the same women that were targeted by Epstein. These women were, they also may have had histories of addiction, prior sexual abuse, making them very vulnerable to manipulation, these types of men. The NDAs, I'm sure, absolutely helped. Essentially, what we're dealing with here is another situation where a massive fella, where's the money coming from? What's his history of trading? I'm already looking through his history, and nobody is coming forward as having deals with this guy. Nobody's claiming that he is I know him. I'm very familiar with him. That person, I worked with him in that office. Nobody has anything to say. Very similar to Epstein. What does that mean? I don't know. Curious case that just comes out today. You know what I mean? The indictment carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years for sex trafficking charges with a potential for life. For transporting individuals for prostitution, it's a maximum of 10 years per count. Bank fraud carries up to 30 years. Rubin was ordered to be detained without bail. Powers has been released on house arrest in her initial proceedings. Prosecutors continue to solicit additional victims. who may have been involved. Pretty crazy case, guys. One to keep in your peripherals, I will say. This guy, he's in custody right now. I don't know how long he's going to stay there. As far as I can tell, he wasn't too familiar with rich, powerful people, but I'm curious to see when that starts to immediately come out. I'm curious when it starts to come out that folks were meeting him or having dinner parties. As you may know, these are just the types. These are just the types of fellas that are out there and we're forced to ask these questions. You know, pretty nutty situation, you guys. Reuben, let's get his name again for you. Howard Reuben. There you go. Howard Reuben and Jennifer Powers. These people are the new Jeffrey and Ghislaine, guys. They are alive. That is what matters, is they are alive. They are out there. They are in the world currently. Keep your eyes on them. We're going to see how it turns out. It could be another Diddy case where, like, he ended up getting out because there's no real evidence, because there's texts between Cassie where she was like, yeah, I'm perfectly willing. Yeah, I'm ready to freak off. Oh, I can't wait. That didn't look great, especially if you were going into court wanting to make yourself look like you were an absolute victim. Don't send the guy texts saying that you were absolutely willing and all of this shit. It's not going to look good for you. Anyways, moving on. That is just a bit of a dark thing, you know what I mean? That's just a crazy, new, nutty thing that this world is revealing to us, and we continue to ask questions about how this guy might have been involved in the greater standings of the world. I don't know, but I better stop talking before, whatever happens. We don't know. We have no idea, but that's exactly why I'm going to move on. And plus, there's way more to talk about. Government shutdown could be tomorrow, guys, October 1st. Basically, and I'm going to run it down because we've talked about this in a previous episode, Congress has failed to do its job. It's essentially, if you don't know, the United States government, it doesn't run off of the January to December calendar. The government's fiscal calendar is October 1st to September 30th of every single year. And Congress is charged, essentially, with coming up with a budget for agencies, departments, which priorities are going to be funded. They have the responsibility to figure out where we're going to parcel out all our money. And essentially, that is their only job to do right around this time of year. That's their only main priority. And they've failed to do that. J.D. Vance has come out saying, hey, we had a pretty productive talk. I'm hoping that that's the case. I'm hoping J.D. Vance can be the voice of reason. You know what I mean? The Peter Thiel prompted candidate, the guy who literally was posted up by Palantir 2016, the same year his book came out, and then the movie shortly after, which the movie is very good. If you watch it, it's directed by Ron Howard, the little boy Opie from the Andy Griffith Show. Really, really great movie. I'm not even going to lie. It's really good. But, like, you know, I'm not going to say that the book itself is great. I haven't read it. But it's fascinating, you know, his story. I'm hoping that he is the promising candidate here. I'm hoping that he's the one that can bring peace and unity. You know what I mean? I hope that that's what can happen. That would be nice if he could help bring some unity. So basically, this bill that we need to approve every single year has not been approved. If the bill is not approved by the House, the Senate, and signed into law by the president, no government agency or department is going to get its money or allotment, and then the government will shut down. At this time, all of this will happen if we don't come to a deal, and it's likely that we're not even close. Each agency and department is currently figuring out who they're going to furlough and who they're going to let go for this brief period of time. All right. I think that it's easier. I've heard this broken down many times, the list of stuff that is going to continue to be done by the government, because it's easier to tell you the list of things that will continue to be done rather than the list of things that will be canceled by the government. Social Security payments, Medicare, Medicaid, as covered before, veterans benefits, U.S. military operations, federal law offices, ICE, CBP, law enforcement, customs and border protection, and air traffic control all will remain in operation. Depending on how long the shutdown lasts, they may have to go to work without pay. So we're going Hey, we're going to squabble about politics. We're going to squabble a little bit more. We're going to figure out a little bit how we feel. Just like this administration has been making a lot of people feel a lot of things. So we got to hash out how we feel before we can figure out if your family can eat. So listen, guys, we need everybody to feel a certain way before we can guarantee that your passport will be filed under the according amount of time. Because this is, by the way, here's the rundown for that. The longer this goes, the worse it gets. National parks are closed down effective immediately. That's like the least of your concerns, but it's worth mentioning. If the shutdown lasts more than a week, passport processing can slow down or stop. Federal courts, immigration courts included, will be canceled or postpone hearings. Some government contractors will not be paid. The post office will stay open, thankfully enough, and all places that remain open will have staff that will be considered non-essentials, so government-based services you rely on effectively will be slower because they will have less staff. We haven't had a shutdown since 2018-2019, 35 days, the longest in history, like in recent history. That was about the $6 billion border wall bull honky that was going on back then. He ultimately signed the bill that didn't even fund the wall. The Republicans do have all three branches, I would like to mention. They have the House, the Senate, and the President. So ultimately, they can yell at Democrats all they want. It is their responsibility to get something passed. They do not have the 60 votes needed to pass the votes alone. They need to hash it out a little bit with some Democrats, and I don't see that working out all too well. I don't see them banging heads together anytime soon, especially since yesterday, Trump posted to his Twitter shortly after meeting with Schumer and Jeffries a clip, and I'd actually love to play that clip for you if you haven't seen it. I'm gonna go ahead and play that for you right now so you can get some context.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of at least for a while, until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
So that doesn't convey, I don't know about you guys, but that to me doesn't convey like those negotiations went very well between him and between them and the president. I don't know if those conversations went all too well. So JD Vance, please, beautiful baby face JD Vance, I hope you can be the voice of reason. You can walk in there and go, listen, we gotta work this out. Hopefully that's what you can be. And then, you'll be a wonderful next president. It's either you or it's whoever they throw up. I have no idea who's going to be. There's a cesspool rather, of candidates that you can pick from right now. It's too damn early to call. Way too early. So JD Vance, you're probably the head of the Republican ticket if I had to take a shot at it. Best of luck to you. Negotiate that for us, and that'll definitely help your chances. Moving on. Michigan, I've been there, man, I'd say 7 times in my life. I'm going to be honest with you. Wisconsin's more beautiful. I prefer, and by the way, I have not been to the lower peninsula. I've only been to the upper peninsula. So maybe my grading is a little off. Maybe I'm grading it not on the best curve. You know what I mean? I've only seen your woodsy belt up there. Practically northern Wisconsin. So the Michigan, the state that I love, I admit I have a place in my heart for it. Even though it has wronged me many times on camping trips, I admit it's been some of the worst camping trips of my life. But admittedly, I am not someone who's having the worst time not Washington, the worst time in Michigan, because there's been another shooting, and authorities have identified the attacker in this shooting. Once again at a church, as Thomas Jacob Sanford, the 40-year-old Trump lover, went on a violent rampage Sunday. He killed at least 4 and injured at the last count 8 others. This man drove his car through the front entrance, opened fire with his assault rifle. That is the only description of the weapon that we have. I will get you a clearer description when we get one. And then used a flammable substance, likely gasoline, to set the building on fire. And that was some of the first news footage that you saw. If you were like me, you turned on the news and you saw a building burning, and they were talking about a school shooting, not a school shooting, but a shooting at another church. And you go, what? Why is the building on fire? It's because this guy went ahead and torched the whole building. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a era we have not seen since the 60s and 70s. This is Waco. This is, people are ready to die for ideologies again. This is, your friends from college are getting together in packs of 6 or 7 to go live on ranches that are financed by old people that are dying in the main houses while they live in the barn and have ritualistic sex parties. This is the new 1960s and 70s. After JFK was shot, the mind of the country was kind of shattered. That illusion of the 50s broke. That weird veil that we kind of had that was just kind of like, oh, things are going well. It's post-war. We got our shit together better than any other country. And we did, really. We were building great things. We had industry. We had things to be proud of. And then eventually the industry started to leave. And then there was nothing propping up these major cities. And they started to fall. Everybody remembers the white flight, all this sort of shit happening in the late 60s, early 70s. All of these social, racial tensions began to flare up around this time. And then this is post 9/11 world. This is exactly, we're falling into post COVID also, I would love to say. That is another big trauma that fucked up a lot of people's minds. But 9/11, that's been 20 years now. Let's be honest, we got used to the surveillance state that brought in. We didn't get used to the fear of each other's neighbors. But then that fear of the neighbors that we had since 9/11 got cranked up in COVID. Suddenly the neighbors that we were fearing were the same people. Sorry, I'm looking out my window to make sure nobody's listening. The fear of the neighbors that we feel is for people that are they're gonna kill you because they don't believe the same stuff as you. Not just the Democrats are gonna come kill you because you don't agree with trans stuff, like everybody's trying to say with all of the trans shooters that have happened recently. It's also like evangelical weirdos that believe that they're killing for God. Like, this is not a right and left issue. It's that people are being radicalized. They are being truly and honestly, because when a life that is promised to you by America, when a house, a family, when children is promised to you, and then that promise is not delivered upon, people get nutty. When they feel like there's no ladder to climb anymore, and that the people at the top have pulled up that ladder, they feel absolutely like there's nothing to do except make Molotov cocktails. That's all that you're gonna see. And I'm hoping that this is a blip. I'm hoping that we can go back to, in 10 years from now, 2030s, we can look back on this and go, wow, night and day. That was a nutty time, you guys. We really lost our way. We found reasons to kill again. We found this kind of weird, I'm gonna kill you because that demon that exists in everybody, we let it out for a few years. And COVID, I think, really took the mask off, weirdly, as it put the mask on, and we put the mask on to go in public, and everybody stayed online and stayed on, chat rooms and chat boards and all of this shit on the internet. People realized that, and then echo chambers got worse. This is the misinformation age. This is the media age. This is the weird, anybody can believe whatever they want, and I don't see this. I'm going to be honest. I don't see this getting better for at least 5, maybe 7 years, because this is something that we got to ride out. The 2020s it could be a dark era. Depending on where we go from here, depending on what happens from this point, if people don't start getting their shit in line and start realizing that this is ridiculous and start having normal conversations again, I don't know. We're going to have to figure this out. We're going to have to really, really start to settle this down, because this was just September 28th. This is 2 days ago. All right. that's my little prediction on why we're on a downturn, guys. This is the 70s. This is the like the killer days. Be careful, like don't walk out at night. Be like, you know what I mean? That's the energy. The energy is like there's a curfew at 6 p.m. And it's like, take your kids in at night and tell them stories about strangers to instill this lifelong fear in them. That's the energy. But we got to try to reject it. Because otherwise, these psychos win. These fucking losers win. Anyways, a mass shooting and an arson attack took place at the Church of Jesus of Latter-day Saints. This was a Mormon church in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan. The perpetrator, identified as 40-year-old Thomas Jacob Sanford, allegedly rammed his truck into the church, opened gunfire with a semi-automatic rifle, and set the building ablaze using gasoline. At least 4 people were killed and 8 others were wounded. Sanford was killed in a shootout with responding police. Authorities are investigating the motive, and some reports suggest that Sanford harbored hostility toward the Mormon faith. So once again, people are going to try to make this like he was a major Trump supporter, so he was there to kill whatever. This guy clearly just had a hatred for the Mormon faith and was a radical weirdo who thought that violence was a solution. It's a completely different type of human being than normal Trump supporters. Though, just like normal Democrats wouldn't support the trans shooter that happened at a church. Like, we have to stop whatever, is this guy part of your side? Bullshit. Though no definitive motive has been confirmed, the the investigation includes searches of his vehicle and his home electronics for evidence. There has been no definitive thing has been confirmed. We don't know why. It's pretty clear that this guy was just, a nut. He wanted to make a statement, and there is a lot more that we can learn from this in the coming days, but the immediate finger-pointing about the shootings is just enough. The real solution here we got to talk about is mental health, mild gun reform, and that's the real conversation we want to have, but we don't want to have that. We'd rather have who's who, and is this guy your side trying to kill me? Whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not the, average representation of a Trump supporter. It's the average representation of a nut who should have watched the Book of Mormon, because it's a good musical that gives you a good impression of Mormons. I bought a copy of the Book of Mormon after it because I was like, I just want to have this in my home. I like these people. They're kind of cool. I'm not a practicer of their faith, but I'll keep their book around. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's a cool moment. I would like to introduce a brand new segment. Welcome to the For Your Consideration segment. This is a segment where I like to throw out something for us to think about this week, and just random thought that I'd like to keep in the back of our mind so that we can just have some thinking about it. With Kamala Harris in the mainstream again, especially because of the release of her latest trial balloon for politics, 107 days. I wanted to take this opportunity to try my best to cleanse the palate of modern Democrats and liberal-minded peoples. I feel as though the last thing we need to do is run back to the watering hole that made us sick last time. That's exactly what this is trying to do. This is the water hole that gave us all cholera last time. Coming back and going, no, it's actually, no. Back in 2024 when I made you all sick, that wasn't my fault. I was actually the perfect candidate for you to drink from. The previous president of the watering hole should have left months earlier and given me time to run and give an impression on the American people. And he was too old, and no one wanted to say anything, and everybody acted like it was the watering hole's decision and the watering hole and his wife. And I was actually held back by all these stupid people making choices like Tim Waltz, the vice watering hole, who I slam in the book for his debate and how agreeable he was with J.D. Vance. And I was like, oh my God, why would that watering hole agree with him? That's so stupid. But you should drink from me again because I'm actually clean again. And I know I failed you last time, but it was because all the other things around me were making me dirty. Here is how. Well, not how I've made myself less dirty, but here's why you should drink from me again. This is why you should come back, and you should trust me no matter what. You know what I mean? I'm saying let's not do that. Let's avoid her like it's the plague, because on the ballot, it seems like she is. She's never had the staying power. I'm sorry. She's never had the Michelle Obama effect many people claim that she does. So let me say this as best as I possibly can. The best move for us right now, as the left-leaning peoples, is a rebrand. Now, when I say a rebrand, a lot of people go, what are you talking about? The prime example is Cracker Barrel. What did Cracker Barrel do? A rebrand. And what happened? No one liked it. And that's exactly what the Democrats did. They had a rebrand as a Bernie Sanders pseudo-Antifa tattoo weirdos party where like everyone is welcome and your truth is your truth and whatever. Like it became the everyone, your personal truth party. It became the Antifa tattooed weirdos party. You've driven away all of the Clinton era normies. You've driven away all the people who voted for Democrats for years because their Archie Bunker grandparents were voting for Democrats for years. The curmudgeonly types, you made them all go to Fox News because MSNBC started to be hosted by Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid, those aliens, those weird Cynthia Erivo looking weirdos. Let's rebrand as the party of fellas in suits with lame-ass haircuts again. Can we try it out? Now, you may ask, who can do that for us? Let me tell you. It ain't Gavin Newsom. American Psycho scares people, and California is a turnoff. We don't need another West Coaster coming to tell us about pineapple on pizza and wind turbine job opportunities. Enough. We need a boring, beige, but big-nosed classic Democrat who appeals to the suburbs, wants to get families and homes, and wants the basic agreeable shit that everybody can get behind that's 18 to 35. We need Dean Phillips. Dean Phillips, representative from Minnesota. No, fuck Dean Withers. He's not the future. Blonde twinks debating people using gotchas rather than talking to ordinary people the way that you just like talk like at a counter at a bar, talking to people like no. Well, do you actually believe this? Well, this is actually what that, and if you see that is, it's never going to work. He will be fucked in every single primary you throw him in. I'm sure he prefers the streamer money anyways. Shut up. Dean Phillips. Throw his name in the algorithm. This is a Democrat's Democrat. Elected to the United States House in 2018, representing Minnesota's 3rd congressional district. He flipped a district that had been long held by Republicans. He was reelected in 2020 and 2022. Generally, he's a moderate, center-left Democrat, especially attuned to suburban voters. This is exactly what we need. He ran in the 2024 Democratic primary, challenging Joe Biden, criticizing Biden's age and perceived electability, but did not gain much traction, unfortunately, and he eventually withdrew and endorsed Biden as per the usual for Democrats. So he has no spine, just like other Democrats. He's malleable. He's willing to stand for whatever we want as long as he gets ahead. At age 55, as of 2024, he is a younger person considering all of the people that are around the Democratic Party. You see people talking about, besides AOC, who's in her 30s, it's mostly the 60-plus crowd. He positions himself as like bridging the age gap, which may matter to voters that are finding, the tired old leadership unreliable. He has business experience, which is the one thing that a lot of people don't really think is important. His membership in the Problem Solvers Caucus, his record of reaching across the aisle, his focus on the ethical reform, all of these sorts of things might appeal to independent voters. The voters who are unhappy with polarization, he's just the candidate. He is the guy's guy. This is a man to unite the country. Democrats, it's him or it's Claire Underwood at Turning Point USA. You have to realize that. Who's it going to be? By the way, Erica's takeover at Turning Point USA is blatantly a success. Her widowed image is over. She is leaning into the public figure angle now. And I'd say it's been 20 days now since it happened. I think she's clear for suspicion now. I'm not sure why she's made it her complete and total interest to pick up the blood-smattered mic, as Ben Shapiro said it. She comes out at the funeral, as everybody saw, like it's WrestleMania, and she's the Undertaker. There's a firework blasting in front of her, and she's wearing the white suit of the fallen hero, Hillary Clinton. The whole appearance is just bizarre, and I understand I understand they're trying to show their love and their whatever the grandeur her husband's organization was capable of or whatever, but it's just a little out there and inappropriate. You gotta decide, guys. Are you gonna choose an ordinary Democrat, someone that is not radical, someone that is not gonna push the boundaries, someone that is gonna be agreeable, someone that is going to appeal to the masses, or are you gonna continue to choose out their candidates? Are you gonna continue to choose these people who can't, they're not great speakers. They're not good unless you have them on teleprompter. They're just not, you have to take this into account, because we either do this and we rebrand again, we Cracker Barrel this shit and we go back to the Kennedy Democrat style, or it's over and the Turning Point USA girls win. The girls with, the beautifully beaten makeup faces and just the white blondish Mar-a-Lago hair, they're going to win. Unfortunately, if you don't get your shit together as a party. My point, I want to say this beautifully and succinctly, and to close out the episode, I just want to leave everybody who is listening with this. My point is, you got to paint with a little purple to turn the whole canvas a shade of blue. If that's your ultimate goal, you got to paint with a little purple. At least it's better than painting with maroon and dark red. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been your Brain on Air. This has been a solid run. I'm happy with how today went. We covered some essentials. We'll cover even more tomorrow, probably, because I expect I'll be back, but we'll see where it goes. But until I see you guys next time, thank you all so much for listening. This has been Ollie Volt Larson with your Brain on Air. Thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye. Signing off later.